Thursday, May 7th, regular, special work session for the city of Somerton. We're gonna go off and go straight to roll call.
Mayor Gerardo Anaya.
Present.
Vice Mayor Martha Garcia. Councilmember Carlos Gonzalez.
Present.
Councilmember Miguel Villalpando. Are you reconnecting with him?
Yes, I'm reconnecting.
Councilmember Juan
Hello.
Castillo.
Please enter your six-digit conference.
We'll just give a second to reconnect to the conference call line for the other members.
This is we might be on the call. We should be connected.
Councilmember Miguel Villalpando, continuing with roll call. Councilmember Luis Galindo. That was a present. Councilmember Jesus Roldan. There you have a quorum.
Is there anywhere to hook up my USB? I'm sorry?
Is this what you look for?
Oh. Actually, it's the Excel spreadsheet that I
You
haven't
can go
yet.
ahead and plug it.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Serena Gallegos, Finance Director. How are you this evening? Good. All fired up and ready to go. That's great. So I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet that was sent to you and should be right in front of you. Let's see.
Do we have council members on the phone, just an email or?
The only one that I felt like I heard a response was from Mr. Dominguez.
There's a delay in the video and the phone of about 5 to 6 seconds. So that may confuse some people.
And yes, Andrea can hear.
Okay.
Okay, so the spreadsheet in front of you is essentially the summary of the 2020 budget and the 2021 budget. We have, first is the adopted budget, the modified budget, differences between those two, our estimated expenditures for fiscal year 2020, and any changes between any differences between the amount budgeted and the amount estimated. Can I disconnect this wire? Can I disconnect this? Or is it-
We cannot, it's
Oh,
recording
it's,
though.
okay. All right.
Do you need an additional port for something?
Yeah, I'm just gonna save this.
That's fine. I'll
To
bring
the
an
disk.
additional.
So I thought we would start by going over our revenues. And I know last time I presented before you, we talked about the revenues and the potential for revenues to decrease given the current state of the economy. And so I thought it would be a good idea to present this to you, which is exactly I'm not able to make changes to this.
USB.
Okay, give me just a second. Perhaps now it will allow me to. Okay, I'm good. To talk about our current times and the unknowns. So, as I've talked about before, our budget greatly depends on state shared revenues. And in the prior recession, there was a significant decrease. So I put that in front of you so that you could see the potential there for our revenues to decrease. Our state shared revenues are significant, so they make up 48% of our budget. And with this going pandemic, we're not sure exactly the effect that it's going to have on these revenues. So that's just something to keep in mind. The summaries that you see in front of you consist of the state shared revenues that we anticipate to receive, and that we're in our local revenues that we're in line to receive. So as you can see, I thought it was very interesting that from 2007 and 2008, the decrease in local sales tax was very sharp. It was 27.4% versus the state shared revenues that showed a slight decrease in 2007, 2008 and continued to decrease for a 3-year period before starting to stabilize and increase. So I don't know whether that's going to be indicative of what will happen now, but as of now, we don't have any idea as to the net effect that this will have on our shared revenues. So the other item that I did want to talk to you all about was property taxes. So I thought it would be a good idea. I really never looked at my property taxes prior to working for municipal government. So it's interesting to see the allocation, the different allocation of those revenues. So what I did is I essentially went and picked a residence, and I allocated the revenues that are shared by our property taxes. And so here you can see that in a home that has an assessed valuation of $113,000, the split, the different organizations that receive a portion of our property taxes and the percentage. So I was actually quite surprised to see that we're only at about 12%. So out of this particular residence, the amount the city receives is $187.87. So I've received several residents that come to me and ask, hey, why is my property tax statement so high? Why do I have this increase? And I've had to go over that with them and identify, the city only has a small percentage of the total property tax that you pay. And so in having done that a couple times now, I thought it would be a good idea to present this to you so that you could see. I wasn't trying to, poke.
Interrupt. It sounds like someone may have their phone not muted, so unless you're talking, please mute your phone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so like I said, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was informative. It gave you a snapshot of our property taxes. So having said that, every year we review the property tax levy, and our levy increases and decreases depending on the value of our residences, the assessed value of properties, and so on and so forth, and construction. So last year, during my evaluation, the tax rolls included about $1 million worth of property that hadn't been on prior to 2019. So that's what really allowed us to go through without a truth in taxation and it not have a significant effect. However, this year, if we were to go through with the truth in taxation, the difference would be about $27,960. So that's something that I'd like to get your input on with regards to, do we want to go forward and do a truth in taxation hearing and levy $712,083, or do we want to go through and just do the maximum allowable without having to go through the process? So that's food for thought, and I would like some, I would like to know what your thoughts are.
Have you, done the calculation of what would be the impact to each property owner?
Yes.
Let's say just a standard family dwelling on average.
So if you look at the bottom of that spreadsheet, it has the proposed preliminary property tax levy increase on a home valued at $100,000 would be $6.65.
And I think that that's important, since, getting council, we've always passed it. Last year, it didn't make sense, but I was surprised that we didn't have it, because that was something that we did every year, and if you see the impact, it's not about $7 for $200,000 home, would be double that, $13 for a year. It's important to show when we're looking at that, you know, some other municipalities think taxes and think it's bad, but when you see what the impact is, it's really not, but cumulative, it does impact our revenues, being that our revenues are low, and we, last night, well, on Wednesday, we were talking about additional revenues for the park, if we don't bond, or that's probably something that we need to start looking at, be creative. Looking at the impact, it's not something that I'd be comfortable moving forward on.
You know, I agree with you, Mayor. I mean, when we look at that, we're talking about maybe 50 cents a month to $1, depending on the value. So it's, you know, it's really not very impactful.
Okay.
So I would agree with you on that one, Mayor.
And if I may add, the good thing about property tax, that property tax levy, is that those revenues are more stable than, say, our sales tax revenue. We usually receive the majority of those revenues, so it's a revenue stream we can count on.
One thing I'm concerned about with, you know, this is one of the council members are not here, but one of the council members is not here, always votes against it, so I would like to have this conversation here before, you know, it plays out in one of the regular meetings. But we just gotta be ready when, you know, if you guys have concerns, let's talk about them now instead of being, you know, bringing it, you know, to the council and having this extended discussion, and, you know, work session. This is where the work needs to be done. There's concerns or questions. Let's go ahead and have them now.
So the truth in taxation only allows a certain amount if it's not a sky's the limit type of
No.
tax. There's a cap to that.
2% or?
Yes, there is a cap. So right now, the maximum is that 712,000 that we can levy.
That what percentage?
That is the proposed property. It would be 1.6936 is the rate. in order to levy that $712,083. So, if I have a consensus, that way we can move forward and I can start with the proper posting of the information and notices. So if you could, just think about it. And my thoughts about this work session was that it was a stepping stone. So we put together a budget that the departments would like. I haven't adjusted for any sales tax discrepancy. This is what the budget would be without any lost revenue. So that's where we're at right now. I'm not sure exactly what the impact would be, but we can definitely get to that as we move through the budget. And then we can get additional feedback from you in the next couple council meetings, if you're okay with that. Yes.
So the 12% that we currently have for the city of Somerton, we're gonna increase at 1.69%.
That's equivalent to 12%.
Well, that's close to 12%.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, the proposed permanent property tax levy increase will be at $6.65.
$6.65 per 100,000. Yes. So if your home is valued at 200,000, then that would be double. It would be $12, $13 for the full year. Yes.
I would say, Mayor, that I think for future, if once we bring this up again, I think having that data is important, and just set it as an example.
Great. Well then, I also wanted to bring to your attention in the first tab, I put together this little calculator for you so you could see the impact of a 10% reduction in revenue. But if you want to see what a 20% reduction in revenue, all you have to do is change it and you'll see the impact that reduction has overall. So when we talk about a 20% decrease in sales tax revenue, then that 20% is equivalent to $806,923, which is, very quickly, what percent of our budget, of our revenues? It's 0.8%.
My phone is always on mute unless I'm speaking.
Okay,
Oh,
so.
your phone is not on mute.
All right, so I think that's all I had for revenue, and so with that, I'd like to open it up for departments to present their budgets to you. So essentially what I would like to do is go in here and perhaps we can start with public safety or general government. Do you have a preference, sir?
Let's go on the list. Whatever their business is.
Okay,
So the preliminary budget will be the 10,332,700, right?
that's what we have currently. That's what we have currently. That's what we anticipate based on the state shared revenues and our trend. So for revenues, this is what we anticipate. And
The property tax percentage.
yes, so I have included the property tax levy increase, the additional 27,000. So, so if you'd like, we can go through and start with. Would you like to start with mayor and council, Ian?
That's fine with me. We'll just tell Paul that his phone is definitely not muted.
Okay. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I suppose if you'd like, I put just a quick calculation of the budget associated with health insurance. So the budget for 2020, the impact on general fund was 1,098,713. For 2022, okay. For 2021, the budget is estimated using the current premiums that we have. And that's estimated to be 880,900 for the general fund, and the remaining is for the other funds. So there's a significant difference in our premiums. And I know that's something that you've been talking about and are looking into. So any decision that you make will have a direct impact here. Okay.
And if I may just add, as you know, there very likely may be more savings generated with health insurance, that we're not fully done with that process yet, so these numbers are preliminary, they're conservative, and we're hopeful that, yes, sir.
Okay. And the next tab is the .08 funds and Parks and Recreation. So for last year, the .08 was divided as you see, right here. And so this is based on an estimated sales tax at that point in time. So we anticipated maybe having $504,000 out of the .08 fund, and this is how it was allocated. For this coming year, we would like your input as to, and there's different departments will be presenting different projects, etc. And so depending on what we anticipate our sales tax revenue to be will be how much we're able to allocate. Okay, so I wanted to make sure you had this readily available so you could see. So the first two are obviously the debt service and
So have we spent the monies for the park street repairs and the basketball repairs?
no, we have not. Those have not been spent. Yes, Mr. Mesa is here. If you have any questions regarding those two. I've also updated the 2019 actual, the 2020 estimate, and the 2021 budget. And I thought it was interesting because I looked at the 2019 and I thought, well, what? That's a significant increase. So that was the pool improvement project, cameras, and the beginning of the master plan. So you have a list of those items that hit Parks and Recreation.
The estimated amount that we'll be having for next year for the .08, $70,000.
If we anticipate our sales tax revenues to come in, yes.
But for this, for that, let's go back to the 20th. Suze, since you're already here, has there been any repairs to that gym that we have used from the .08 fund?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. This is Mesa, Parks and Recreation Director. As of right now, there hasn't been any repairs from the .08. We still have the $38K available. We're looking. We have the quotes available for that. Just the slab is $50,000 for the Joe Munoz full restoration. We were looking at a partial, basically repatching, but it's an investment that it's not going to be very effective or enduring for the city. It's going to mostly endure 2 to 3 years because of the heat. It's going to start separating, and some of that funding was used for the front door also, from that capital outlay budget that was available, which was $7,200. So it's basically not enough, and it's not a good investment. If we're able to accumulate that, and together with the additional funding from the donations, that's going to be a good investment. That's going to be a project that's going to endure and last at least 10 years, 8 to 10 years, and provide a good service to the community. Also, the gym, the floor is, just the floor, it's at least $80,000. You can't do much with, 15,000. So they basically, not enough was budgeted or allocated.
Mayor, for next year, for the estimate of 0.8 pounds for 2021, you would like to see more additions like we did last year, like, for repairs to that, or you want to just keep it as it is? Because right now, from last year, we only have $9,000 left over from last year's budget, from the 20. So we wanna continue having some kind of leverage on the 0.8. The only way we're gonna do it is we just keep it as it is right now, the depth for the city hall and the parkland. And that would be like 70,000 left over.
Well, and, what I'm hearing is that there's some leftovers, so we might be able to carry it over, but, you know, one thing on CAPs is, you know, I understand that there were challenges and maybe we underestimated how much we wanted, but something that I would like is to keep us informed when it's not gonna be done, because one of the things was last year we had a light budget as far as projects.
Yep.
And any little thing, you know, that's what, you know, council shows, that's something that people can touch, you know, they're not gonna be able to, they don't feel when, you know, we'll give better salary, better benefit, but they feel a new basketball court, a new improvements, that's what, you know, council are judged in, and that's something that in years past, we kept a close eye on the CAPs, and whenever we budget monies in CIPs, we expect for them to be done, or at least show some improvement. I mean, that, you know, with those 15,000, maybe we could have purchased equipment for whenever if we budget more for a slab or whatever, but at least have some plan, because as it is, last year was very light on actual projects. The project that we had was the entrance to Somerton, and that was also wasn't done. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. But I would like to keep the 0.8, at least those monies, and carry it over for this next year. And with whatever is there, then we'll use some of the projects that we're looking at.
Yep. We'll take that in consideration.
I have a question, Mayor. So this is where the funds, if we wanted to put an AC unit on that gym, this is where they would come from?
Yes.
In the past, we have budgeted the CAPs, I don't know why it wasn't never done.
It was just reprioritized every year. There was something new. It's been there for maybe 10 years. Every time it's been reprioritized.
But how much would it cost us to just say, hypothetically speaking?
For the court,
Yeah.
80 grand. We have the CAP and
For an AC unit?
no, for the whole AC, just the engineering, the AC is 150 for the gym. So it had to be engineered, and then the whole structure, the insulation, all that. So it's around 150 for the whole project. It was already quoted. We already have a quote on hand, so it's around that.
But that's one of the reasons that it's been postponed as well, because it's pretty expensive.
But is that gonna give you cheaper?
And if I may, I think at this point in time, it's actually a benefit not to have gone forward with it, because in these uncertain times, however we can save monies, because we don't know the impact that we're gonna have, and based on all the research that I've been doing, and I'm fairly certain you should have received the email that I sent you regarding how to budget in these uncertain times in order to save monies and try to delay these projects as much as possible, because we don't know the impact that COVID-19 is going to have on our local revenues and our state shared revenues. So I think I mean, unfortunately, we didn't go through with them, but fortunately, we're gonna have that additional, money in the bank that will allow us to potentially not have to furlough someone. So that's just something to keep in mind.
So just save as much money as we can, right?
As of now, that's what I would advise, just because we don't know where we'll be a year from now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know where you're going with the insurance.
I'm just putting that out there, we need to, so we really, theoretically
Yes.
speaking, we really need to look at all the areas that we need to cut and really, right?
Yes,
Not going anywhere.
that's correct, sir. As of right now, I'm actually very grateful that we have an additional amount that we could potentially carry over and help us with not having to impact our normal operations. So,
When are we gonna get projections or the results of the state share grant?
well, we received the preliminary state shared revenues, and that's what I have currently, but I have not received any additional information from them. I know that they're working on their finalized projections, but I don't know when we're gonna receive. I can definitely inquire again and get back to you. So, like I said, it's uncertain times, so, and the last tab I had for you is these are more pertinent to, mayor and council's budget, is what we contribute, or you contribute to the different events. And so, the events and dues and subscriptions and other, you don't have it on the screen? Oh,
No, no, I'm just gonna.
so it's the last tab in the spreadsheet that I sent you. So it's the outside agencies and event sponsors.
You can always make it bigger from this plus line too, if you need it.
Thank you. So, as you can see, I think it would be a good idea to, increase that amount, because I know that there's other events that occur throughout the year that you like to participate in. And so, just to make sure that you have additional budget for that. Okay, and with that, if you'd like to get started with the mayor and council budget. Is that everything, or, would you like me to make the screen bigger? Okay. All right, then I will hand it over to you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Vice Mayor. I'm just gonna hit a couple of quick highlights, and then if there's any detail, I might defer to Zarina, but just some of the headlines with the mayor and council budget. Obviously, this is your budget. We're looking at a general increase, roughly $40,000, looking ahead to the fiscal '21 budget. The big piece of that is YSIPTA dues, YSIPTA dues, coming in at just shy of $30,000. We're also adding $5,000 to public relations account for sponsorship of community events such as golf tournaments, the Yepes Walk, Cesar Chavez Dinner, and other events that we participate with.
On that, special events and public relations, you switched, where it's allocated?
Yes, I did switch
Okay.
where it's allocated.
Okay.
Sorry, yes, I did switch the allocation. And that was because I felt that not special events, but the public relations was more indicative of the type of revenues that was associated with.
And And then just the last note is adding about $5,000 to the other services line item, which in some ways is a catch-all for things that were not properly allocated before in last year's budget.
Why is council showing an increase in wages? Do we pass something that you don't know?
No, sir, that was actually my fault. I did not properly allocate the difference in vice mayor. And so, last year, everyone was allocated the same, and so I saw that this year, and I caught it, and I made the adjustment.
Sorry, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Do we have,
So the way that legal services were being allocated prior to our city attorney coming on board, and actually prior to that, everything was going to just administration. And so I thought it would be better and also consistent with generally accepted accounting principles to have the amount that is allocated with each department to each department. So you can see how much legal fees that each department is being charged. I'm sorry. Do you have any other questions for me? No? Okay.
So we can move on to the administration budget if you wish.
Yes.
You may want to do this on Worthless on Windows.
Okay, no worries. All we have to do is click here and there and unclick that and everything updates.
Okay, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, for the administration budget, it's essentially staying the same. There is some savings, as Finance Director mentioned, by moving $36,000 out of legal. We've also moved website costs out of admin over to IT. And there's a overall $18,000 increase due to consultant Jerry Cabrera costs that we factored into the fiscal 21 budget.
Can you repeat that again, please?
You bet. So essentially, the admin budget is staying the same.
I'm so sorry, I think she's dying. And that one's just the one that follows next, so.
Pardon me? Yeah, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. I was gonna take 2.
Good afternoon. You doing good? How about yourself? Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilman Carlos? Well, we're back for another year. I probably have the simplest budget for the city, so instead of going on and on and on, I'll entertain any questions you might have. And if I don't have the answers, Serena will.
You may want to let them know about that particular position that may be mandated.
Right. The one item that is new to the court's budget this fiscal year is a request by the court to add into our budget one position, which would be the security officer position. The security officer's position, or court security officer's position, is not going to be mandated. It is mandated already. It is required by this Arizona Supreme Court that every court have at least one full-time security person aboard. It actually passed last year, but they gave us a break. I think it was initially in our budget last year, and we scratched it because they gave us an extension because a lot of courts weren't ready for that, especially the smaller courts like ours. So it is mandated already. What Zarina was alluding to is that because of this present situation that we find ourselves with the pandemic crisis, several courts, of course, in cities and towns and counties have to readjust their budgets. And there was a petition that was filed on behalf of 13 or 14 courts, most of them smaller courts like ours, a couple of big ones, asking the Supreme Court if they could once again give us another extension so we don't have to have someone retained this fiscal year. And the petition, we asked either for a 6-month or perhaps even a 1-year extension before we are required to hire someone. So I spoke to Zarina, and we decided that we would include it in our budget because just in case we don't get that extension, I heard there's a very good possibility that we will get another year extension before we have to hire a full-time security court officer. But in the meantime, I wanted to make sure that we include that officer in. It is a position that would be full-time, and there is an academy that was developed, an officers academy that was developed by the Supreme Court specifically for court officers. They would not come under the personnel or retirement system of regular police officers. They want to separate them because that's so expensive. These officers that would be working for the courts are semi-certified, if you will. They will be certified to carry a weapon, to use mace, the taser, et cetera, but they do not have law enforcement capabilities, if you will, outside the courtroom. That's the one item that would be different in the court's budget.
Is that already included in the budget for next year?
For this one, yes. But like I said, we had to do that just in case we don't get the extension. Then it's programmed in there. But if we get the extension, then we subtract his salary or her salary, and then any benefits that we would have already included. And you've already included all that as well, correct? Mm-hmm. That's it? Okay. Wow, good. Thank you.
Alright. Okay. The next department is our police department. So let me go to our police, and actually, Chief Juarez has prepared a presentation for you. If you would give me just a second so I can pull it up. The thumb drive, it's the one that you emailed to me. Did you make any changes? Okay, then it should be here. Oh, is it in the file?
This is the only thing in the file.
Audio at home, they say it's so much
It's okay.
better than Tuesday.
Alright,
Seven slides.
I'm going to,
You guys do need to connect multiple, like, screens and have so much right here.
yeah, that would be great. That way I don't have to be going from device to device. So you have all the details for the budget in that spreadsheet. And I will, here you go.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're waiting for Councilman.
Wait,
Castillo.
okay, all right.
Then I'll take a break too. Excuse me.
Oh, are we good? Are we waiting for anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Jesus. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Can you hear me? Yes, all right. So I have a very short presentation. It's about 7 slides. I think a lot of the information that's already on this PowerPoint you've seen in the past. So I don't want to bore you with it. So I have here a short PowerPoint on some of the things that could benefit the community of Somerton. Essentially the same thing. There's not a major change other than maybe a pay raise for some of our officers and a reclassification of at least 2 of our employees. So I'm going to go through this, and we go to the first slide that shows us how we're staffed at this time. We have a couple of vacancies that we have not filled in. You'll see at the very top portion on the left that we have 2 captains vacancies that at this time our priority is to fill the positions of the police officers that are, if you look at that very first column on the left, you'll see that we have 4 vacancies for officers, and they're currently going through some background checks. And we have 1 person in the academy. I'm going a little bit backwards because all the other positions at the top are filled. I do want to bring your attention to the detectives. We have 2 detectives. One of them is currently working patrol to assist cover the short staffing that we have. And we have our school resource officer who, because of the pandemic, is out of school, so he's able to assist us during this time with patrol. So we have a total of 17 people that are staff, that are sworn officers at the station. And we have 9 of those that are working patrol 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It becomes really tough when one of them calls in sick or somebody fails for us in our 12-hour shift that we're working at this time. Our communications division is completely staffed. We have 6 dispatchers and 1 communications supervisor. Our support staff as well, we have a records person that's been working records but is holding the position or is classified as a dispatcher. We also have an administrative assistant that is conducting the duties of a property evidence custodian and impound coordinator, but is classified as an administrative assistant. And we're very, very fortunate to have real good people in Somerton. We have 1 full-time volunteer. In the next slide, you will see the comparisons. And I know you've seen this before, but I wanted to show you some of the comparisons that we have from Yuma Police, Yuma County Sheriff's Office, and the San Luis Police Department. And our current pay for the police officers in Somerton being at $19.06, and with 5% increase for detectives when they're in special assignments and a take-home vehicle. Very basic. I don't know if you have any questions on this particular slide. I'll move on to the next one. This is the expenses that we're making for the police academy as we are continuing to hire police officers or cadets at this time. They're not police officers. So they're about 20 weeks in the academy, and this is the cost that we're incurring. And you might ask yourself, how do we regain some of this money back? My information that I received is that this battle has been fought and won by the police labor unions. That we can't request, or we could, but that's something that maybe I leave up to legal and our risk pool to work it out. One of the things that I see where we could, we'd be very interested in getting some of that money back is the expense in the academy. That's the toughest for us. Our command staff is spending a lot of time as well, and the investment of these background checks, and it's just very time consuming to check into everybody's, where they live, the drug use they've had, bringing the testing on board, the written test portion, the physical portion part of it, and then bringing oral board, because we're bringing our command staff to conduct some of that interviews. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide. My point being about this one is that we're asking for an increase for some of our officers, and the increase that I'm asking is for $1.50. That would put us a little bit closer to one of the agencies that our officers have left to. So if we compare some of the dispatchers as well, we don't seem to have much of a problem with our dispatchers. I think our retention with the dispatchers has been very, very good. They've stayed with us for, recently we had a couple retire, but most of them have stayed with us 15, 20 years. So we've been very fortunate in that area. Although you'll see that the pay is different as well. And the $1.50 I'm asking for our dispatchers as well. And the last slide that you see here is going to be the modification or the reclassification of some of our employees. We have our records person that's been working our records for 9 years. Some of the benefits that we would see off of this. First of all, let me go back to the top of the slide. The funding would come from the captain's position at this time. It is not so much necessary to have so many command staff as it is to have the staff at the station that will be able to provide the community better services, getting those reports out, processing that evidence, cleaning up the evidence, continuing to maintain, not so much clean the evidence room, but to maintain the evidence room in great condition where if we would be audited, we wouldn't have any problems. So this is where that money would come from. And Serena might be able to give you a little bit more information as to the money on the captain's position. But some of the benefits that will come from reclassifying this position would be that this particular employee holds the position as a dispatcher. We would be able to hire one more dispatcher and bring this dispatcher on board, and that would give us 7 dispatchers to be able to work with 7 dispatchers throughout the year. There's been some circumstances or cases where we have one dispatcher and we have shots fired and the dispatcher is handling 17 to 19 911 calls. That is an enormous amount of work for one person with such great responsibility. So that would free up one position for a dispatcher. This person would also assist us in being able to supervise the evidence custodian, the administrative assistant, volunteers that we have, and part-time records person that we currently have. We've invested in this person since 2011. This person is trained. And then with that, I'll move to the evidence custodian. Our evidence custodian is currently acting our administrative assistant is currently acting as our evidence and property technician. This person has been doing this for 3 years. This person also handles the impound coordination of the impound of vehicles that come into our lot, which brings revenue to the city because this person is able to process all the paperwork and take care of all necessary processing and preparing of paperwork to be able to auction some of the vehicles and auction some of the handguns that we have in the evidence room that potentially brings revenue to the city and saves taxpayers' monies as well. The benefit to that, again, would be processing and bringing revenues to the city, freeing up the administrative assistant position so that we can fill that position with somebody that completely focuses in the good service to our community in the front desk of our public safety building. And lastly, again, this person would be able to focus 100% their time in the impound of the vehicles and our evidence room, which is paramount. One of the most important rooms in the police department will be the evidence room. And lastly, if this person frees up that position, we would be able to bring an administrative assistant that would provide great service to our community, our citizens, and the way that the lobby, the phone calls, the proper documentation of the calls would be there. And that's my last slide. And with that, Mayor and Council, I would like to thank you for your service to our community. And what I presented to you is in the best interest of our citizens, of my community where I live at too. Thank you. Before I walk away, Mayor, I'd like to approach you and give you a couple of the...
Yeah, and well, first, we're gonna open up for
Sure.
questions. On those two, the last two for reclassification, what's the, what's gonna be the salary change on each of those two positions?
So the impact of getting rid of the captain position and bringing those two on board.
I'm looking at,
Oh.
those positions, what's gonna be the.
Right. Okay, so,
Not necessarily on the whole budget, but on each position, what's gonna be, are they gonna get a $5,000 raise, a $10,000 raise, or what percentage?
well, I don't have that number exactly in front of me. What I can tell you is that the captain's position, by eliminating that position, will actually allow for these two positions to come on board.
Yeah, and that's, I think, it's evident in the presentation, but I just have to see those.
For
positions. Yeah,
those-
I understand the captain's it's gonna be a wash, but I just wanna see the impact and just
Okay.
ensure that we are following city policy as far as, when there's a promotion or reclassification, there's usually like a 10% cap or maybe up to 15 or whatever it is, but we need to ensure that, that there's HR policies for a reason and that those are followed. You can't give somebody a 40% increase and, so I don't know the impact, and hopefully there's some HR regulations against that, because then, you start giving people from the department, then it creates, then we're gonna start hearing this person got a raise, so there's gotta be justification and with following HR policy.
Right. I don't know if you could talk a little bit more about that, Mr. Lozano?
I know, City of Yuma recently passed, it's an 8% cap you are.
Mayor, Council, as I'm aware right now, we don't have such a policy in place. When we do a reclassification, it just gets staffed, and as long as the parties are in agreement, but yes, we don't have a policy to that effect. Probably a good idea to look into one of those for our city.
Yeah, and being a municipal employee myself, I see when somebody's handpicked and just given a position instead of putting out internally for a competitive, just the difference as far as having, the morality part. So that's my concern. So if we can get those numbers, at least what the impact will be at those two positions.
Well, okay, so I'm not sure what that impact would be, given the longevity, or that I would have to get with HR. What I can tell you is that the maximum that position is budgeted for is what we are gonna go with, I mean, I understand what you're saying with regards to the percentage allocation, but purely budget, just talking the budget, the impact of removing one and removing that position and bringing the other one in will have a potential, it'll be a wash and may yield potential savings. So, I can definitely get with HR and get you those numbers. I don't have them right now though, so I apologize.
So everything that should presented it is what the numbers that we have here is based on that,
Yes,
pretty much, the amount that it's, the total amount for the department.
yes,
It's already cleared out what the changes that she wants to be made.
that's correct, sir. Do you
Yeah,
mind?
And to understand whether they're not hiring a captain, but they're making all these changes, so I fully understand that,
But
but I just
I
want to
do
see.
agree with that we have some kind of policy that, just to cover our backs, not to open a can of worms without.
Yeah, exactly, there's gotta be some competitive, I've always said that, don't get positions just to, I understand there's some times there's a need, but there's always good at having competition and having it just,
Yeah, otherwise you're falling in a comfort zone.
yeah.
Okay, and, I don't have the $50 in the budget currently, but I can definitely get that number for you. I was trying to get it to you before the presentation, but I don't, the 150 is not included in there currently. But if you could, I'd like to draw your attention to the amount that was actually not expended from the police budget. So, the budget that police had was $3,042,000, and the amount of expenditures that we're estimating will be spent at the end of the year is $2,475,800, which will yield a savings of $566,329. Yes, so, it's just something that I thought was, that was important for you to
That
observe.
150 is going to match San Luis, the one, not even.
No, it's gonna be below San Luis for, 74 cents. 74 cents.
Can we match at least at the entry level, and at least we're gonna give everybody a 150 and compression? You know, we had issues with retention there, so I would like to see what the impact would be for at least the entry level officers are matched.
Mayor, I do have the starting, hour pay for an officer is $21.30 for San Luis.
130, ours is 19.
Yes, 1906.
We're looking at $2.04, bring it at.
And so be it, if there's compression there at the bottom, then we worked the last 2 years and the 150 raise, and we, but at least the entry level, that to me is concerning, because we've been losing those officers, so at least we can. And how many positions would that be? Those entry level?
18 total recruited.
Was it 18?
No, entry level officers.
Oh, sorry.
That, for the new officer you're
Yeah.
asking? That's 4, 5, 6, about 6
And
positions.
do we have currently entry level officers? Yeah, so.
Yes, we do.
Mayor and council, I just,
Sure, go ahead.
It's not that we're gonna approve it, but, you know, I just wanna see what the impact, how it looks, and just analyze what, compression wise.
And where would it come from?
that would be the comment I wanted to make if I could, Mr. Castillo, and that, I just wanted to,
Or, to me, that would be a priority, you know, as far as looking at budgets, having that, as far as retention, and, yeah, lastly, looking at those other, reclassifications, to me, is more important, the retention of the, well, hiring the officers.
because the issue we have now in police is costing us. We're spending an incredible amount of money on overtime, and you can see that in your budget. Originally, the planned budget for overtime was $100,000. It was recommended to increase that in, I'm talking about the current fiscal year, and we brought it up to about 120,000, I guess 118,400. We are significantly over that, and we're gonna finish almost at $200,000 in overtime for this current fiscal year. So we're spending that money already. In fact, we're spending more already than it would cost to give all the 18 officers that she had originally paid $1.50 increase. So that's where the money would come from. We're already spending it.
Said 150, I agree with it, but the entry level officer at least match what it looks like for the person.
So you'd like the difference, the cost of bringing those entry level positions up to that 150?
No, well, the entry level at least matching San Luis,
Matching San Luis.
and the rest 150. See how that.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll probably cause compression issues, so we'll have to take a look at that, okay?
So no,
And if it does, so be it, everybody getting a $1.50 raise at least. But we're addressing the problem at least that we're underpaying our entry officers. And we're losing, we need boots on the ground.
Are we only talking about eliminating one captain position? Because there's two in the
Just one,
chart.
just one.
so to the year to date, why you should have $571,000?
Why do we still have money?
Why do you guys, I mean, it's good to have, or have $1 million still in your budget.
Because of salaries.
Huh?
Salaries. We haven't been able to hire people.
So,
That's why we have money.
yeah, because it's under personnel.
It's been really hard. We've struggled with our backgrounds. People don't show up to polygraphs. They fail the drug screen, not the drug screen, but the drug requirements. So there's been a lot of, we've been spending a lot of time.
So you have that in process, right?
Correct.
I just have a question here. I see that on the 2020 for medical insurance, it goes from 215 to 2021 to 330. That's 115,000. Is that accurate? That big of a jump?
That big of a jump from
215 to 330?
to 330. Yes, because we're planning on being fully staffed. So the 215 is because those vacancies have caused us not to actually pay out in medical expenses. So how many vacancies did you have?
We had about 5 or 6 vacancies.
So we,
5 or 6?
Six.
So we're looking at almost 30,000 per, I'm sorry, 25,000?
it depends on the positions and how much was allocated. So for when we have vacant positions, I'd have to look at my budget, but we have to budget enough for those coming in to be able to get the full plan. So if they're coming in with families, I average out those vacancies, and so for example, if we had 4 last year, I'll go with the higher on 2 and the lowest on the other 2. So it averages out so that we have enough coverage if someone were to come on board that had that type of medical coverage. I don't know if does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just, so we're looking at like almost between 23 and 25,000 per vacancy right now, just on that item itself, right?
I'd have to look at it
Ballpark.
closer, but ballpark, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what could also have happened is if someone came on board, and could have, waived their health insurance because they already have coverage somewhere else. That's another possibility.
Does that happen often?
Yeah, it's, we have a handful of people that opt out, so. Okay, so the next department, if it's okay with you to move forward, are we good, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then we will go with fire, and I believe Chief Danda's on the phone.
Yes, I am, I'm on the phone.
Good
Everybody
evening,
can hear
Chief.
me well?
Yes.
Evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Ian. Looking at the budget here, I'm sure Marina's got my Excel spreadsheet that she, made for us out. We're basically divided into three main sections on the heading: the personnel, the operating, the capital outlay. The biggest challenge we've had in the last year, as you all know, is we lost, a total of 7 people after July and up until February. And as a result, generated a ton of overtime because we've been having to cover those positions. At the same time, we've actually been shedding some of our part-timers too. We used to rely on them to lower the amount of overtime, but even that's becoming difficult this time. I'm sorry, was someone asking a question?
No.
Okay. And so, and going back to Chief Juarez's comments, and I've commented on this on multiple weekly summaries that I issue out. Our issue has always been and will continue to be the pay. And until we get the industry that gives us the taxes we need, this will always be a challenge for the city as a total, not just for the fire department, the police department. Public Works also is underpaid. And so it's always going to be an issue for us until we get that revenue coming in. And of course, this pandemic, we got one more challenge on top of us. But just to keep as like a note in your head, currently our firefighter paramedic, when they were given a raise because of the $12 minimum wage came in, so we had to give them a raise to keep compression from occurring between them and the firefighter EMTs. A dispatcher at that time was making $14.53 an hour. So the dispatchers are making $1 and change more, up to $2 more than our people that have certifications as firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and their paramedic license, which is total of about 2,000 hours to achieve that. And so, of course, that's a difficulty for us. And so you see your numbers up there, and you see on the right-hand column that great amount that we're calculating as an increase. And that's because when we fill all our positions, that's what it'll take. Those are hard costs. There's no tuning or no fat in there. That's what's going to cost us. The same issue occurs with our operating budget. This last year we had 2 servers go out. We fixed one and we had to completely replace the other. We had our glass broken out by our local hoodlum that broke the glass out at City Hall. That cost us about $5,000. And this coming year, you'll see in the capital outlay, we have $8,500 budgeted, and that's because we have a water heater that's been there for now 11 years, and it's a $8,000 water heater, and so we need to replace that. We also had to replace some glass at one of the back windows of the station. That's about $6,000 in glass, and so we're going to see how we're going to get through that. Other than that, what you see is my budget, Mayor and Council, are basically hard costs. There's no fat, there's no padding, and there's no special project. This is just what it costs for us to operate. And I don't have the ability to present my Cassell to you, but our Cassell program, and Zarina maybe can give you a link to it. If you dial in there and go to the notes on the right of that Cassell program, I have literally itemized every single account number and shown exactly what it's for. And that's always been my practice all the years I've been chief, that I will explain every single dime I'm spending to the mayor and council and to the manager. And so if you dial in there in that Cassell program, go to my notes, you can see why we're budgeting the numbers that we're budgeting. As far as revenue streams, this Excel sheet doesn't really address that. Of course, we have our ambulance, and we're going to take a hit on that, and possibly a hit on with San Luis, Arizona. Right now, all ambulances in the state are meeting with the Department of Health looking for small business loans and help because taking a 37% hit on their revenue streams, because with the pandemic, no one wants to go to the hospital because they don't want to go where all the sick people are. And so they'll be sick and they'll stay home in spite of being sick. But going beyond that, the question I ask myself is, where do I come up with an additional revenue stream? If we're gonna attempt to do billing for City of Yuma, with City of Yuma being in the same situation as us, that's gonna be difficult. And so I ask myself, where's the money gonna be this coming year? And it's gonna be in COVID. Because when we get through this, afterwards, all the people that have had it are gonna have aftercare issues. And that's gonna, I think, lend itself to our paramedicine program that we have with, Regional Center for Border Health. And so I've already had 2 meetings with Amanda Aguirre regarding this. We're gonna have additional meetings. We're gonna try to come up with a program to utilize the CFS, which is the Medicare, in order to, attempt to create an aftercare program where we can go and help people at their homes and maybe create an additional revenue stream for the city to offset our costs. Other than that, unless you have any questions, Mayor and Council, that's all I have to say.
Any questions, comments? So, if I get it correctly, they're asking for a raise too, for firefighter, no?
No, the reason you'll see an increase in the fire budget is because the SAFER grant that is currently offsetting some of those costs is going to start slowly, decreasing. That's why you see that, salaries and wages increasing a bit.
What is gonna be the impact on losing the ambulance contract?
About 100 and, Chief, is 150 correct?
That's about right. That sounds right. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but that sounds about correct.
Yeah.
General fund, so we're gonna.
Yes, that, and then we're gonna lose that revenue stream, and then the grant that is offsetting some fire salaries is also, God, I can't think of the word, going away slowly. There you go. So, that's why you see an increase in their budget. But no, there's no additional, COLA in there or any other increases.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor and Council, if I could just make an additional comment here, now we're speaking on this issue. That second ambulance, if you look after July to up till about December, the amount of revenue it generated was more than paying for itself and the employees that were staffing it. And once we get past this pandemic and the calls increase again, eventually that second ambulance is gonna be what's gonna generate an additional revenue stream onto, the first ambulance that we have. And just as an example of the need for it, right now, our personnel went with one ambulance to the reservation, another ambulance went to the prison, and then we didn't have ambulances in our engine right now. I responded to an accident at, Avenue B and 19th. A person flipped on his motorcycle on the street. And so the squad had to break loose from the call on the reservation, head that way. And the person at the prison ended up having to call I guess it was a full code arrest. They called the patient and then they made their way back to the accident and were able to arrive even before Rural Metro, who had called to respond because we were out of ambulances. And my point being, that second ambulance is necessary for life and safety of the people in our community. And on top of that, it's going to generate revenue for us.
Thank you, sir. I will move on to community development and animal control.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We can start with community development. Basically, we don't have very many significant changes from last year's budget. We did some reductions on several accounts, trying to save some money, but for the most part, we have the same numbers. funds were reallocated per Serena's direction. We used to have the account number 105837. That was our catch-all account. We had several funds in there. So for proper accounting purposes, Serena decided to separate it into several accounts. Basically, we're not increasing the money, but we're just allocating it or moving money to different accounts. That's basically what it is. We have two salary adjustments that are being proposed, and these are per the employee handbook. One is for longevity. We have an employee that is going to be on her 10-year anniversary. And we also have one adjustment proposed for additional certifications obtained beyond the one that is required for employment as a condition of employment. So those are the two that are being proposed. It's 2.5% for each position, which equates to about less than 40 cents per hour per person. For this fiscal year, we don't have any capital outlay projects that are being proposed. Last year's $75,000 that we proposed and you council approved were for the 2020 general plan update, which is ongoing right now. We're not going to have that same amount, that same expense in the next 10 years. So this year we're not proposing anything. Any questions from you for community development? Thank you. Now I have, if I may, animal control.
Yes. Animal control. I think, you know what, I added both of them. I apologize. I clicked on community development and animal control.
Okay.
The subtotals are incorrect though. They were incorrect prior to. So this is just animal control.
Okay. Well, basically, same thing with animal control. We don't have any changes. Nothing has, it's being proposed. There are no increases. There are no salary adjustments being proposed. There is a difference that you can see in the numbers, but this was a review and correction that was made by finance department compared to last year. We're not proposing any salary increases. It's just to correct the amounts that were calculated or under-calculated last year. And that's on the salary line. Correct. We didn't calculate the on-call. We only have 2 officers, and we are trying to maintain as much coverage as possible. We don't have 24/7 coverage, obviously, with 2 officers. So that's one of the reasons that we needed to adjust the on-call portion of it under salaries. Other than that, we don't have any capital outlay projects being proposed this year. Last year's we had $10,000, which is right now we are working with 911 system. This is to replace their equipment and their vehicles to be compatible with a new world or 911 system. That's all we have for last year. This year we don't have anything for animal control. Any questions? Thank you.
Has left.
Oh.
That was Chief Dean.
So now let's go to,
Well, I have a whole bunch of questions for the fire department.
all right, so now it's,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm
Be a
just
public.
kidding. I'm kidding.
all right, economic development.
You ready?
You ready? Oh, I'm sorry.
Save the best for last, and you have extra here.
Actually, we still have parks.
Parks, oh.
Oh, and legal and IT. I'm sorry?
Parks.
Yes, I did. I skipped parks. I'm so sorry, Jesus. As soon as we're done, we'll get to you. Are we on the other break? The Vice Mayor's still up? one too?
There's a soda machine in the second floor. Break room.
Está ahí en el office.
What's going on? What do we need?
Oh,
There's sodas in the fridge here.
there's soda, and then the chicken.
I'm looking for a Coke Zero.
Oh, there's no Coke Zero down there?
No.
Yeah, I talked to Jonathan yesterday, he buy the barber.
Yeah, to give it a trial.
Yeah, he gave a little demo, yeah. So what we're looking at though is redoing the audio in this room, which budget is that in? That's in Jorge's budget.
Yes, and tech, information.
Yeah, so that's, instead of doing a little patch fixes here and there, we're looking at doing it. It may not be as much as they're looking at. Yeah, he gave a little demo and, yeah, he gave a couple of options, they were pretty cool. But we don't know how long this whole remote thing is gonna be going on. So I hesitate patching a problem now that's just temporary, when we're looking at redoing the whole thing. But I don't know, there's no right answers, you just try the best you can. I'm ready.
Records technician. Evident, there you go. La dispatcher que está currently on the administrative assistant on the sheet, so those are already.
Hey, Mayor?
These new positions are in the
Is it
budget. So
resume, yeah?
their budget are already in there.
No, okay.
These new positions,
It's coming back in a couple minutes.
the captain's
No,
salary
okay.
covers those two positions. So if we get rid of the captain, the intern is gonna be basically
Well, I have just a question for those that are in council that are in there, just food for thought, since we just heard the presentation by fire department.
Yeah.
If the chief is projecting a downfall in revenue because nobody's going to the hospital, why are we not looking at reducing the second ambulance, so that it's a cost? There's a 35% reduction in services, and our billing is around 50%. I mean, so why are we looking, I mean, I made the comment when we started, when we got that state funding for that second ambulance, that we were gonna analyze whether it was cost effective or not. And essentially, you're telling us that we're gonna be dropping 35% plus an additional 50% of what's not being billed out. Why aren't you considering reducing that second ambulance? Food for thought.
You can inquire on that.
yes, I understand. Okay, that's what with regards to the switching,
Because obviously, he's increasing his budget. And if he's gonna increase his budget based on, COVID-19 money that's out there, then that's fine. I mean, I'm all for it if we could get extra money that way. But for us to run a second ambulance when it's not needed, just because there was one incident, I mean, that's why we have ITAs with other entities to be able to cover us when we're busy. It just doesn't make business sense.
Yeah, another thing that, I just, thinking about it, just, when we hired those, the fire department, through that grant that paid, I think initially 100, then 75, then 50, and then it went. So whenever we get those grants, we gotta understand as council is that eventually we're gonna have that as a liability, so now we're seeing that. So we're stuck, so every time we make a decision like that, it's something that we need to look at, now we're here. And there's a need in the department for personnel, obviously.
Mayor and council members, good evening. My name is Hector Tapia, Economic Development Director. And based on the budget discussion you already have, the economic development budget is also as well almost the same as last year.
Has left.
So the only highlight of the economic development, we have professional services, some minor changes from last time. As you know, we're looking into trying to find different ways to fund the professional service for finding a grocery store and other retail. And there's a company that we're looking into it right now. So that will be the category under professional services. Potentially under this year budget, we can cover at least half of the amount for that services. Besides that, the other change that is very important for the operation of not only economic development but also for citywide the graphic design services. And I give you a little handout. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to send the email to the other council members about the attachment, but this handout give you an idea about the services provided by right now an existing position as a part-time position, but the demand for the services has been increasing in the last almost 3 years already. So this budget for 2021, even though it's almost the same as last time, he adds recommendations to reclassify the part-time position to add it as a full-time position. Those are the two highlights that I have besides the last year budget, because I just recall the special events coordination was under economic development before. The budget on 1920 was 381,300. So 146,887 was moved to parks and recreation. So the actual budget that we have now in economic development is 234,413. And by the expenditures that we're trying to save money for this fiscal year, is only estimated to be 202,000. So based on the savings that we had this year, and also the overall impact on the economic development budget will be, I believe, Serena is about 33,000. The actual impact, 23,987 from the previous 4/30/2020 adjusted budget. So by adding this position from part-time to full-time, it's very little impact on the existing and the previous economic development budget.
Has left.
Mayor and Council, besides that, that's only highlights that I have on the economic development expenditures. Everything else is the same as last year. The overall increase from the adjusted budget based on 4/30/2020, the overall adjustment will be 23,987. So it will be 268,400 according to the preliminary estimations that Serena has presented.
I was gonna say, but for public relations on that one that Mayor asked, it's 10,000 on the 2020, and it went up 20,000. It went up to 30,000, a difference of 20,000 for 2020, 2021. What was?
Well, yeah, that one is just a label because I used to, a label change used to be in the capital outlay last year. That's for the facade improvements that we're doing on Main Street. And Serena decided to move those amounts to public relations because actually it's a loan. It's not actually a 100% expenditure, but that's only, maybe she can explain that, but it's basically the facade improvement loan that we have right now.
Mayor, council members. So yes, I did some reclassification on that particular item because in essence, what we're doing is providing a loan to the residents. We're not actually creating an asset for the city. Therefore, it shouldn't be classified as a capital outlay for us.
Mayor, and the intent is to continue with the same program, even though this fiscal year we got only one applicant, but eventually we'd like to continue changes the facade on Main Street. Even
So like, the only thing that you're changing is, or adding, it's just that the rest of the money to make the person a full-time, right?
yes, that's correct.
Okay, so you're just adding more money, a little bit more money into your budget to be able to hire this person as a full-time.
Yeah, basically it's just it's about 33,000 because I just remember we had 2.5 employees before in economic development because it was moved one full-time position to Parks and Recreation. Not only the budget was reduced, but also the some assistants that we used to have before in economic development. And right now we're only 1.5 positions. And the demand for graphic design and the services for that position have been increasing a lot in the last 6 months.
So adding that position in economic development will increase our chances to get a grocery store, right?
Well, it could be because I will have a little more help.
Mayor, I have a question. I have some comments and questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Villapando.
Well, first of all, I don't feel that this position should be made full-time because you're talking about graphics design. I don't know if Hector provided you guys, because obviously I'm not there, with information regarding how much workload she's actually doing and what time frame, just because I don't have any stats in front of me, so I can't see that. And second of all, quite honestly, if it's the part-timer that is currently there, again, I'm not mentioning any names, that person is not going to be able, doesn't have the capability to be able to market the city in any fashion as far as going and meeting with potential investors. If Hector is serious about getting somebody that's a marketing specialist, let him hire a marketing specialist, but her duties are quite honestly focused around graphics and maybe some social media networking. But she's not going to be able to market the city of Somerton, and that's where I have a concern. And so, for me, it's a no.
Yeah, Mayor and Council Member Villapando, the intent of this position is only to reclassify it as a graphic designer, because as you know, I'm the one that's doing the marketing, and talking to investors and bringing companies to Somerton, and even though it takes a long time, but that's my job, and we don't have right now, and we cannot afford to hire a new person as a marketing specialist like other cities they do have, but right now we cannot afford that. But the assistance that I get is to things, basic things that we need not only in my department, but also you can see the council members and mayor right now here. In the second page of the handout includes 70% of the job in the last few months was actually requested by Parks and Recreation. And in economic development, we have been doing a lot of videos, marketing campaign for the Chap Local, for the census, and all those advertising has been done by the graphic designer. And besides that, we're doing a lot of reach out to businesses with the existing coronavirus concerns. And as you know, all I do is as a sign. We all tend to do many things, especially here in Somerton. One position we do a lot of things. So even though you can name a position graphic designer or marketing specialist, we do so many things besides that, and that's very typical here in Somerton. And in other cities, one position, they do only one position, but here we have to do many other things.
You're not telling us anything new that we don't know, Hector. We know some of you guys wear multiple hats, and some of you guys don't. And quite frankly, the individual you're talking about doesn't have the ability, Hector. Heck, how many times didn't it take you to tell that individual to start doing the videos? How many times didn't they have to tell you that? Come on now, I mean, you're not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. I mean, and this is so frustrating that you throw out all these oh, well, we have to do this, we have to do that. But she does not have the ability to do it, Hector. You're shooting yourself in the foot. Why don't you sit there and ask for somebody to test it?
We're arguing that borderline issue about maybe for employee performance, and maybe that's not an issue that should be discussed in this type of meeting.
Yeah, and you know, I feel we're looking at the budget, and as far as personnel, I don't know, just HR take a look at it, but I don't like to get involved with individual. I don't think it's fair for the person or for us that we're, you know, sitting over here and we're not in the day-to-day operations, but you know, there's obviously there's some council members don't agree, but then again, let's see what the city policy is as far as approving. We can bring it, but we're looking at the budget here and looking at what the budget impact is, and you know, it's up to human resource, the city manager, if they feel that that's where it needs to be, or if it feels that it needs to be under a separate department. But I've seen the value of having somebody in that position, as far as debating if that position, that person is that just follow our policy and see it. And let's not look at the person when giving and I think that's where also staff, we're looking at the individual. Yeah, they've been giving us years of part-time, but let's look at the overall picture, where not looking at the person as far as our organization. Is it really necessary to have a graphic designer? Is it? If it is, let's not look at then we can open it up and make it a competitive full-time position, and if that person gets hired, fine. And that's what I'm saying with the PD too. I just don't like giving positions just for because they looking at the person. Let's look at the overall impact to the organization. Let's open it up for competitive, and that's how you get the best people. That's why when I understand there's like PD, they have experience, but open it up, and if it's competitive, then I'll accept it. But just giving people because there might be friendships or some feeling that you saw him grow, and that's just not how our organization works. Let's look at the overall, and I think both are getting involved with those emotional, looking at the person, not at the organization. And I feel that that's what we need to be looking at. Do we need one? perhaps we do, but that's something that needs to be looked at, but not that person. Maybe we do approve that position, but it's gonna be opened up and it's gonna be, we're gonna have a panel and hire somebody. But I think that's where my philosophy lies, is like, let's not just be giving positions just to give. Let's make it competitive. If it's an internal competition, fine.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That's the intent, is to, if this position is approved, has to be a competition, and open it up, and people can actually, challenge other people to, if they can do the same thing. Why not? Yeah, thank you for that. Besides that, that's the only actual changes that Economic Development Department recommends for the new budget 2021. And if any other questions?
The retail coach is included here, right?
Yes.
And that's important to be pointed out, like when we talk about highlights, that would have been something, and just, yeah, we're seeing a spreadsheet with numbers, and you give us a handout last second, but that's the type of stuff I think as council members, we wanna know. You're gonna hire somebody, what's the impact? We're looking at the numbers, but we're not looking at specifics, and that's the information that I would like to be pointed out. I felt that the chief gave us, a pretty good, the police chief gave us, a strong presentation as far as making her case of what she wants for her police officers and what, and that's, highlighting what that is. And to me, that's important, because there's always been, controversy when we hired Buxton. We had Councilman Gonzalez that was never, happy with that. And now that could be something that we need to discuss as far as budget. If we want, hire a consultant to help you bring in a store. I agree with that, but that's something that we as council, it's something new, something that's gonna have an effect politically, so that's the type of information that I want staff to present me, those highlights, not just numbers. Yeah, we will look at numbers, and yeah, Serena looks at the overall picture, but I want department heads to highlight each difference that, even though budget-wise it's the same, but what's different?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, because we were not given the chance to create a PowerPoint to present. It was supposed to be only to highlight the main points, but the intent is to look into that potential, the company to bring the grocery store to Somerton. But yes, thank you.
All right, how about parks?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. This is Mesa Parks and Recreation Director. Here tonight to go over our budget, what we're proposing for next fiscal year. As you may see, there's quite a savings account available, which is not a negative, as my coworker Serena mentioned. We're currently at $818,000 right now, and the projected budget, well, the approved budget was a little over $1,117,700. I mean, there's been some savings, as you may know, through the special events. On the wages, of course, we'd have several ins and outs, a lot of changes. A lot of the programs couldn't happen, some of the events. That's where the savings comes from. As we spoke also in the one of the projects, that's also a savings portion of it. So we're currently at $755,000 unexpended right now. We did go ask for a few upgrades on some of the accounts. I'm just going to review The accounts we're asking for additional funding. Currently, under overtime, I'm requesting consideration for an additional funding. We're currently at 173% of what was actually budgeted for. As you may see on the graph, that was very useful by my coworker Hector. It shows an increment of 73% additionally from the approved budget, which was 15,000. We're currently at 25. Requesting 25 where we're at right now, and that's a good amount to take into consideration. Also for contract labor, as you may notice, we went down because of the additional full-time recreation position that's been active for 4 months. That position has a total expense or investment from the city of $41,000, which is going to save the city a large portion of the contractual labor amount. Any questions to right now?
What is all included in that contract labor? What?
Contract labor was basically all the league supervisors. It doesn't include the lifeguards. That's under part-time. It does include the event attendance. It's intended for some contract work for parks. We could use to contract out some of the work, and that's basically what it's been used for in the past. But we're not going to use any more of the league coordinators or supervisors, so that's going to be supplemented by the recreation specialist position.
When you say the events, meaning security and all that, or?
Well, that goes under the special events account for the budget for the special events themselves. It's basically for the league attendance, umpires, scorekeepers, for the programs. It was used for the league coordinators also. That was a good chunk of money there, which was around $20,000 per season for all the sports. So we're using a lot of budget there. So it was around $40,000 for the whole year, which was about the same. But now we have a full-time employee and all that. And that's including the benefits. So. Moving forward, I mean, I want to touch base on the contract labor. I mean, we're cutting down. I spoke to Sam this week, and we're going to break up the areas, basically the sites. Parks and Recreation is going to take care of the districts now, basically all the districts. Sam's going to take care of Main Street, and he's going to do some of the minor retentions close to the streets. So we are going to need more contractual labor. I added the bare minimum. We keep the 90 grand if possible. That would help out contract some of the work out, because we're going to remain with the same staff, and of course it's going to be a little complicated to raise up the level of service. We can stay with the same staff and the same budget, but it's going to help out, alleviate some of the work, and just improve the level of service with those additional 30 grand. If the 60 grand is approved.
You mentioned that you will be taking care of the districts in public works, Main Street. What about the pathways?
The pathways also, it's going to be public works. So we're taking care of some of the districts as of right now, but we're going to be taking care of all of them.
And is it going to go through the contractor, or is it?
Right now, we're just considering internally, basically. We're gonna absorb that. The contract would be contract out some of the work just to improve the level of service, just the detail that goes into the parks maintenance, if possible.
On the contract labor, is that money come out of some of it out of the districts for it, or
This is another account, yeah. Yep. And as I mentioned, that's the only thing that I want council to take into consideration of moving forward, because we are going to make that change starting next fiscal year. So that's going to be active starting July. Right now, we're going to stay as is for the next month and a half or so, and then go from there. Any questions on the contractual? Yeah, and they're in the improvement districts, it's the 29s, it's a different budget, or not 29s, but it's a different budget. Okay, moving forward, I mean, dues and subscriptions, you see a large increment. That was because in the past, it was not allocated properly, so we're just gonna scoot over to computer tech support, which is basically gonna be 8,000 hopefully instead of 5. And that's gonna alleviate the 3,900 for rec desk, which was being allocated to that account incorrectly, as pointed out by finance. So that's basically why we're so high on that account. And tech support, we're asking for 8,000 instead of 5. That's going to alleviate for the 3,900 for rec desk that we pay every year. We are going to go to iWorks, start using it a lot more next fiscal year for the parks maintenance schedule, and that's going to help monitor and do the time study that was requested by council. That's going to help just keep track of what we're doing, where we're spending our money and our man hours. And as I mentioned, that's on the tech support. We're asking a little more money on the repair maintenance building. We were approved 20K for last fiscal year, and for next fiscal year we're asking for 25. Why? Because the culture center is in bad shape. I mean, it needs a lot of work, especially on the bathrooms. The sewer system is old. It's the old type ceramic. It's foggy in there. The smell is bad, and of course we have kids, so we're hoping we can do some work to the sewer system. And I mean, we'd love to do a new youth center right now for next year, next few years, but I mean that's not a possibility right now. But we can improve the one we have, and we already made some improvements there, and it's going to help a lot. The main complaint from the programs is the bathroom, and we already painted the mirrors, this, and looking to the security, the safety kits, all of that. That's minor stuff that makes a big difference, but the bathroom's the main complaint. Yep.
The future, and I know that the mayor had mentioned this in the retreat that, I mean, if you're gonna spend 20,000 or more or less, whatever, put money into that building, might as well tear it down and build something that, more better for the youth kids, have some kind of like a, something that will bring them in there, into that building, so that's something to think about, like in the future, if we're gonna be spending so much money putting into it, trying to fix it, might as well tear it down and build a facility where we're gonna have, youth over there and I know that in the past we had something here that, where the police department used to be called the West. We used to have like, where the kids can come and use, boxing and.
The boxing, yeah.
And other things there. That's something to think about, so.
And, hopefully, this is just a snapshot, but hopefully what council goals were analyzed, what we said in the retreat as far as the youth and some of those projects, hopefully we see that, because there's gotta be a balance between operation and maintenance, but we also need to show the community that we're building this year. That's my hope, that at least we're gonna have maybe not something very expensive or whatever, but something that shows that something that we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, the community respect those changes, as you mentioned. I mean, they see those courts. They don't see the performance evaluations from the staff. They see the courts. They see the programs, the events. They're visible, and there has to be some sort of investment for the upkeep and the maintenance, and of course some improvements, because that building is probably a 50, 60-year-old building, so of course it's going to need some help eventually. And but it's what we have right now, and we got to make it work. Any questions on the?
No,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I know in the retreat, and you brought it up, you mentioned time study.
Yeah.
But I know in the retreat we talked about, maybe getting one of those GPS kind of trackers for the vehicles, kind of things like that. So I was wondering, are you including that in this? the budget?
Not some sort of equipment for that. We're just using we're investing some money on the iWork system. That helps keep track because we're going to start doing daily reports from the actual staff maintenance hours. So they're going to report their hours. It's going to go into the system. That's how we're going to be able to keep track of materials and hours for the staff. So we have a time study going on starting next fiscal year. Yep. Oh.
Has left.
Councilmember Castillo, if I may, that was something that I had brought up, and I did not include it in this budget just in the interest of fiscal conservatism and unsure economic outlook. But if it's something the council wants back in, we can look at that. The cost isn't terribly high, anywhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 was what I, in a very rough estimate, would be for that tracking system for our vehicle fleet.
I just thought that way, I mean, if you're doing a time study, it could really help you pinpoint and analyze your data to be strategic about which routes to go, to take, or whatnot.
Yep.
You know, so I mean, you know, and when you mentioned that time study, it triggered that. So.
You know, and I'm saying the retreat, one of the things that was mentioned was, let's have a project for the youth. There's a basketball court, so let's have it here. Let's reflect what's gonna cost you to build a basketball court. We have money there from this year. We have the Cocoa Puff funds too that could be utilized. Like, let's tell us what, how take our recommendations, what we highlighted in the retreat, and most of it has to do with Parks and Rec, and give us some options, and a plan, because, to me, it seems that those were ignored. We had the retreat, and now we're just looking at O&M, but we also need to have, balance between that, and also, like I said, last year we didn't do any Parks and Rec projects, and I'm hoping that this year we do something. Yeah, we have that programs and everything, but that's not, because we need some capital programs. And they don't have to be expensive, but we gave ideas during the retreat, and to me, we weren't listened to. And we mentioned it on Tuesday that we would like for those to be highlighted and at least reflected in a tent, that we were to be reflected in the budget.
Yeah, just to add upon that, I mean, we do have one CIP on the list that we're proposing for next year, which is basically the Joe Munoz Court. I mean, we do have those 38 grand from the capital outlay that are available. We have the funding from the Cocoa Pond. We might get an additional 20 grand that we got this year. I mean, that's going to sum up the total amount we do need for a full restoration of the court. If that's the direction council wants to take, I mean, it's a good investment. That it's the only court the city has, and I mean, it's been like that forever. Might as well invest some money. It's in a key zone, a symbolic zone of Somerton. The people are going to appreciate it and start doing some programming at that park. Give it some life, give it some color. Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly what he's saying.
Yeah.
You already talking about the money, sir?
Yeah.
Go ahead and start moving into it.
Yeah. We need an additional like 20 grand that we're projecting we're going to get from donation. If we get that money, or we have an additional amount that was given that is being considered for a skate park, that also could be moved into that project. I mean, it's some options that we're trying to provide, and I mean, to me, it's a very good investment.
You said skate park?
Yeah, I mean, the skate park is also one of the options being considered for another CIP. So,
where would it be located?
I mean, we would look at another park that has one of the bigger retentions, or Joe Munoz. I mean.
Something that was mentioned on the
Yeah.
south side of town, we have one over here.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I was contacted actually, but the bigger company right now. Yeah, the guys that built, well, the company that built the skate park at Council Park went bankrupt, so they're not working anymore. They're not in business, so they don't have no parts available. But the other company's in business, and they could take care of some maintenance and repairs, and they're gonna send me some quotes for an additional skate park.
That's what,
Yep.
one that something,
Yep.
I know we don't have the funding, but we can get creative,
Yep.
something. A project that has a big impact on our youth, and we've always, at least in South County, been leaders as far as just going out there and building those amenities. We've always been being creative, so that's what I would like.
Yeah, it's also something we can take a look at. I mean, do some partnerships. I mean, for the court per se. I mean, I was mentioning to Ian, maybe partner with, see if Coca-Cola wants, hopefully can sponsor some money for next year, donate, or maybe alumni. They're very popular here, the Diablito. Some kind of donation, include their logo, and make it the Diablito Court or something. I mean, that's all ideas, right? But this is the concrete information we have right now, and moving forward. I mean, I don't know any more questions for the CAP. That's our only CAP we're proposing for next year.
That one?
Yep.
What about
The
the skate park?
skate park right now, we don't have it on our list, but we can start quoting it. Yeah.
See if we can get donations, we can
Yeah.
have it budgeted, and we can get those revenues.
Yeah, they're gonna send us two concepts, and more economical concept, and another one a little bit more medium range. So I mean, we can look at the option and see what we can do.
Yeah, at least one we should build this next year. And have we applied for the APS grant on the basketball court?
Yeah, we're in the cycle. I mean, that's pretty much it. They do go by cycles. I mean, they by region. So they were here in this area not too long ago in Yuma, I think 2017. So now they go more toward the Phoenix area and then come back more towards this area. So that's how they sort of manage it.
Any other questions?
You know what, on the pillars, the price went from 40 to 84.
Program supplies.
So last year we had 40,000 and we went up to 84,500. Could you elaborate on that?
And the
The budgeted amount was 84.4, but they only spent 40, right?
yeah.
My computer is being very slow.
Lauren,
He's only increasing by 100, you know?
Program supplies. Program supplies, yeah, it's only increasing by 100.
He only spent 40,
Okay.
so 84, 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see. Okay. I misread it.
That all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned budget basically the same. I mean, we all know that there's been a lot of ins and outs, so that's why there's a lot of less expenses from the program supply side.
I mentioned about licensing for weed control pesticides. I know it's not a huge budgetary impact, but that's in there, right?
Yeah, we did include some additional funding for that. I mean, like on the gas, we're already up there currently at 7,200. We're asking for a little bit more on gas to alleviate for the travel expenses. We're asking for $1,000 more because we're in the works of sending 3 parks employees to get certified for pesticide control, so they can be able to go spray the weeds around town. Also, 1 CDL, because we don't have a backup for the senior center. So I mean, if that guy can't work, I mean, we're out of travel for the senior center and all of their projects. And so that's what we want to do with the trainings and the additional 1,000. And I think it's going to be very worthwhile for the city. Of course, right now, for the improving the level of service for the districts, a lot of the big problem is the weed control with it. Right now, only Rodney is certified to do it. Besides that, we're very limited because you can only do 5 gallons per site if you're not certified. And I mean, the town's big. There's a lot of districts, and we need more people to be certified to be spraying at volume or according to the demand.
Understand that, well, the last time we tried with it, the employees couldn't pass the test. So, I would, and of course, we can't require them to pass it, but we can keep in mind whenever we recruit new parks employees, that we make that a requirement. So they, it's either that they pass it or not, then we'll let you go. But as far as the testing, but it would be unfair to them to make them do that, but if they do, then maybe we can look into having a stipend for it.
Yeah, right now it's a good time because we have 2 open positions right now, so we have to replace one of our employees. Yeah,
6 months.
yeah. And we created 2 new parts guys. They're pretty fluent English, Spanish, so there are 2 good prospects that we could send. I mean, they look like they want to stay and move up, but I mean, that's a good opportunity for them. And they're very active, so that's another thing to consider. That's about some of the slight changes you're going to see in the budget for special events. That's also a big one for us. We did include some additional funding there from 77,500 to 93. We're requesting 5 more for the bigger events, which are 4th of July and Greater Days, which would go towards the marketing and entertainment, basically. We're requesting 1,000 for Dia del Niño, which we've never had a budget for Dia del Niño, and start doing more activities and a little more giveaways and stuff like that. Yep, and we are requesting $2,000 for 4 culture events at the park here at Sanguinetti. They're going to be distributed throughout the year in different types of practices like arts, painting, and music and stuff like that. So we're going to do one for each type of practice or art, and they're going to be distributed throughout the year. So we're considering $500 per event.
It's related to you, but on the special events coordinator, does she has her own budget or is it under parks?
It's under parks. It's under
It's
parks.
under parks. So, why not have like an extra line item where it specifies that to me, special events coordinator is pretty much, it's under the parks red, but it should be her or him, whatever, handling anything has to do with special events, even marketing, etc. So, we'll say, have some kind of budget just specifically for that person. So I can say, I have so much money to spend, this is what I can do with it. Instead of going everything to Parks and Rec, you know what I'm saying?
So in the budget, there is one line item that is dedicated to just special events.
Special events.
So the special events is 105642. So you can see it on your spreadsheet.
I don't,
Oh, okay. So yeah, there's one specific special event item, a line item. Does that answer your question?
well, yeah, so that person can pretty much say, this is how much I have to be able to work with it throughout the year in regards to anything that I wanna bring out to the table and talk to my director and see if this can be done.
Yep.
So I mean, it can be maybe that person has different ideas in regards to bringing entertainment or special events, and just say, you know what, instead of doing this, why don't we try this? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, kinda like, give her more freedom to work with what she has,
Okay.
director doesn't like it, it's not gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm just putting that out there, you know what I'm saying? So, to be a special events coordinator, has to act as a special events coordinator and be more free to be able to do marketing and trying to get, you know, donations here and there, etc. But again, we're not trying to, but.
Okay.
I just wonder if I know if there's money's not available in the first.
Yes, yes, sir.
The increase is 13,000 for special events. What's that, entails of 13,000?
That would be directed to $5,000 additional for 4th of July, 5 more for Greater Days. It would be $2,000 for the cultural events, for 4 cultural events at the park, $500 for each event, and $1,000 for Dia del Niño. We don't have a budget right now for Dia del Niño, and I think it's an important event, just to have some funding for more activities. And
for Councilman Gonzalez, I know in years past we were firm on what we wanted a schedule of events and everything, but you know, I think now we have the opportunity, there's new ideas to be more flexible and if you see fit that you don't have to spend the whole budget, but make another event, then that's probably what Mr. Gonzalez is saying as far as the flexibility, not just be, you know, we're gonna do this, and even if it's not working, then we're gonna do it, and so it's just, you know.
yeah, and I'm forgetting the Cinco de Mayo. We added $2,000 for the Cinco de Mayo. We're thinking about just doing something outside the box. What we're going to do this year, basically, and that's an idea from our current special events coordinator, that allowing her to expand upon her creativity and all that. She had the idea of doing like a lucha libre type of environment with the cultural activities here at the park and some kind of art, urban art related to Cinco de Mayo and all of that. And we could start something with that small pot, and it's basically it's a good investment. We're not asking a whole lot, but I mean, we did see a good response in Greater Days, and people are going to expect more every year. I mean, we can go back. That's my way of thinking. I mean, and just keep improving. I'm not going to ask $5,000 every year, but maybe it's something that we can consider, and more sponsors. And we're actually already looking to a sponsorship package and working with somebody that has that marketing background and could create a general sponsorship package so we can work strategically and efficiently, not go after sponsors to every event, because that takes away half of your time, and most of the time they say no. So.
Yes, mine is the last actually.
Very, very fast. Do you want to start with city attorney, or do you want to start with HR?
I'll go HR, IT, and
Okay, city attorney. In the order they're usually, huh? Let's see, human resources. Here you go.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Jorge Lozano, the City Attorney and Chief Operating Officer here at the city. Fairly new at this process. The City Attorney's department was created in October 14th, and we've had about 3/4 of a year to figure out what our budget was going to be. I'm also overseeing the Human Resources Department, which is its own department. What you're seeing in front of you is the proposed budget for the Human Resources Department. Again, the department, it's an administrative department. There's really no capital projects under this department because it really deals a lot with operations and employee relations here within the city. So in this budget, you'll see that it's going to be slightly less than the budget that we proposed last year. And the highlights for this department will come to you on the last two line items, which is other services. What we're proposing there is $20,000, which would go to fund our tuition reimbursement program. This is a policy that the council passed just recently, and $20,000 would potentially put 8 of our employees and pay for higher education if they were to avail themselves to the $2,500 limit per year. Of course, it could be more than 8 students depending on the expenses that people would be claiming to get reimbursed. I think it's a neat program. I think it's a benefit. I think that compared, it's a good benefit for our employees, and I think when the announcement went out this week about the potential for this type of funding and this program, I think there was a lot of excitement. It builds a lot of goodwill, and generally employees are very happy that this is an option now that they can pick up and go back to school and get their degree. I think there a lot of them, I guess a lot of them were excited. And the other item that's being requested here, there's another professional service, $20,000. We figured that to address some of these compression issues, to address some of these differences in pay, and to compare ourselves to other cities, other agencies, we're asking that the city conduct a compensation study, and that's included within this budget. That again allows us to analyze how we compare to the other cities and towns. Armando, our human resources specialist, believes that since the city of Yuma did one, that we might not need to do a full-blown one, that the consultant might be able to use some of those parameters, and with that additional money, we can get a good study. We are not thinking of funding or making any adjustments to salaries in this next fiscal year. I think the study is first, and maybe the study would be geared towards the end of our year, and then if it does get the ability to be funded in the future, then we're probably not talking about that until maybe the next fiscal year, until we find out what our revenues are going to be for next year. Any questions on those two items that are a little bit different this year for the HR budget?
My concern is that rate study is that, we're seeing our financial situation here, that with the cash flows, and just creating a false sense of that we're gonna be able to match. We can't. We just realistic. We're doing everything we can over the last couple of years. We've expanded our departments, and within our parameters, we've hired people, and we're looking at ways to do it. But getting that, what is that gonna accomplish? Are we looking into raising everybody's salary? We probably can't. We can't. So just gonna be a document that we have there, and because we know we're underpaid, and we don't need a rate study to compare ourselves to. And that's why I always ask when we're looking at hiring, let's look at what's out there, let's make ourselves competitive. With insurance, the same way, but having a study is just gonna create more of a morale issue, I think, with the departments. And right now, 20,000, considering what we're looking, the way our budget's gonna be, 20,000, I think could be better spent somewhere else where it's gonna have a real impact. At least, maybe next year we see a great boom in our economy, then let's do it. But as of now, I just think it's gonna create more issues.
And you know what, I think I agree. I think if let's say we move forward and we do that study, you know, the next question would be, do we have the flexibility to, you know, at least follow those recommendations that the study finds? I mean, if the flexibility is there, by all means, then let's go for it. If, you know, we can get creative, but if it's not there, then it's really just gonna be something that we probably already know. So on that, I mean, I think, you know, Serena would know best, you know, if the study says, oh, we need to, you know, do we have, as a city, do we have that financial flexibility to get the results, to follow those recommendations? You know, and if the answer is no, I would say then what's the purpose? That would be my take.
Yes, understood. So that is more of a wish list, I think. Obviously, those are the concerns. This study and this proposal was probably floated around back in January, early last year, when our revenues were looking good, the economy was up in an uptick, and you know, yeah, just recently meeting with our city manager and our finance director and myself too, we probably feel that that has changed a little bit. But again, because I think it was a popular thing from the council that we wanted to include that. But by all means, you get to decide and choose what stays and what is appropriate at this time. So so we'll make a note of that's probably not, we'll more than likely have to wait for another cycle.
And I think that's the importance of, you know, in my opinion, to provide, you know, our city with as much flexibility as possible to consider options like this, and then being able to move forward with those recommendations. You know, that's my take on that. I mean, I feel we need to create as much flexibility as possible, and not just for us, but I think even for future council members that come and take our spots, you know, because the last thing we want to do is leave them tied, you know, with very limited options, you know, which is kind of like how I think we feel right now.
Yeah, and at one point, we were looking into bonding more and more. I think there was a $7.5 million bond. And yeah, it was one of those things, that good thing we didn't go for it. But, you know, and again, we're talking about how this changes in 3 months. We're looking into bonding for the park, and now we're putting the brakes on that because we're seeing the way the economy is. I think at this moment that would probably create more chaos than anything.
Okay. Points well taken. We'll adjust that.
Yes, definitely. So all you have to do is go up here and go to IT. There you are.
Okay, so now moving on to our information technology budget, Mayor and Council. Again, we are coming under budget for this year, and our estimated budget for next year is a little bit lower as well. We have 2 positions, and these positions started in December, and some of the areas that are increasing, of course, I'm always interested in sending our IT people to relevant training, so we added a new position. So we feel that at some point when the pandemic ends, they can either continue with their education and their training, or do seminars or webinars or whatnot, but there should be something in there for them to get that training. They're on computer and technical support. It went down from 75,000 to about 50,000, and this is where we would put some of our special projects. That amount was budgeted last year to replace some of the servers here at the city. The actual cost of those servers wasn't 75,000. They came way below. And as you can see on this line item, we're only expected to spend about 35,000 of those 75,000 that were budgeted. So there's a significant savings those servers did need to be replaced. A couple of months ago, our servers went down, and we were without computers for about 2 or 3 days, and that really, destroys our whole operation in terms of collections, in terms of people being able to work and access the internet and whatnot. So it really creates a lot of chaos. So we definitely cannot be without properly working equipment. And another along with that, I believe on this $50,000 figure, we also did we not include something for capital outlay? Yes, but was that in there? Is that there?
It's not in there, no.
So we had.
I thought that was what the 50,000 was.
So maybe we did throw it in there too. So assuming that's where it went, we're also proposing about a project for IT here for this particular room, and that has to do with our sound system. So coronavirus threw another monkey wrench, and it's testing us. And so when we're trying to integrate, the YouTube channel with our cameras, plus our microphones that are in front of you, plus our speakers, plus whatever Zoom is or whatever third-party streaming application we're using, it really gets messy. It really gets messy, and I think we're at a point where we're gonna have to go and get a professional to come in here and just wire everything to one centralized location. You know more about those things because that's your speak. But we're proposing to maybe wire that, and it'll enhance this level of service for those people that are now following you and listening to you at their home. It also enhances our ability to provide proper recordings for people that are demanding the minutes, or people that are demanding the recording, and allows us to comply with our open meeting. So just, I think, investing in a system here that is going to record and capture everything under one roof and integrate with all these applications that we're now using, I think is a good investment for the city. We'll go out for quotes, and just depending on how they come, that's going to be, I think, one of the projects for IT this year. So.
We open City Hall, we had issues with it. I don't wanna see more.
And okay, and that's really that's it for IT. I mean, other than that, everything is normal operating and salaries for 2 employees. And we're gonna move to.
Down lower.
Sorry.
Right here.
I'm good at other stuff. Okay.
See, city attorney. And there you go.
And for the city attorney budget, I was actually very surprised that Zarina over budgeted for a lot of things. I mean, and in this particular case, I guess she went out of her way to get us whatever we needed to come in prepared. But as you can see, it came under budget as well, so we're happy with that. And as you can see, on salaries and wages, there was a question as to that particular amount. But there's other areas that the finance director is also charging for that salary. Other departments that have used from time to time. The part-time assistant is still there. I didn't feel, and it's under the county attorney's office, and it supports the city attorney, and it supports the HR specialist. And we really didn't feel to bring someone in full-time at this point. The person was brought in January, worked a couple of months, and then the pandemic hit, and a couple more months was really in and out of the office. So at this point, we really haven't gotten a grasp as to you know, how, the actual needs. So we're still holding off on that, and we realize about the budget constraints. So we're asking that remain at part-time for now. And the biggest changes you'll see will come in legal fees. Last year we allocated now $9,200 in legal fees. Most of that has already been paid out on pending litigation. And these are outside counsel fees. Some of the fees that are not paid through the municipal risk pool, and some specialties, or just plain conflicts where you know, maybe the city attorney is involved, and obviously those matters can't be handled by the city attorney. So it's always nice to have some conflict money there. And this year we're thinking about $15,000, so that's a major change. There's still some contemplated litigation, and I think that's sufficient. We actually, it's a very, very conservative, and again, surprised by Zarina, she wanted more there, but she just wants to protect us. But yeah, we felt that 15,000 was we could get away with it, and at least for this year. And the other services right below it, that contemplates things like deposition fees, trial fees, ordering a transcript, things to support some of the cases that we have. As you can see, we only spent 100 this year, but obviously 5,000 is a very, it's a large number, but you know, we don't feel if we can spend less than 1,000 there, that's what we spend. But it's just good to have a contingency there so that we have enough coverage for an emergency. But you know, like the 15,000 and that 5,000, obviously the intent is not to go out and spend it, of course. Nobody likes litigation, but it's just there as a cushion to make sure we have adequate coverage. Any other questions on the city attorney's budget? Thank you. Thank you.
Last one. All right. Okay, let's see.
Put in your program.
I'm sorry?
Put in your program. Software.
Oh, the software. Oh no, that's very, very expensive, unfortunately. I didn't even include it in the budget because it was one of those things that.
Is it like a one-time fee, and then there's like a yearly
Maintenance? Yes, sir. So essentially going to a new ERP system would be about, $100,000. And then after that, it would be about 30,000 computer and technical support. So right now it's low because I found that we were being overcharged. So I requested a credit. And the reason we didn't spend the full amount is because we received a credit for modules within Cassell that we weren't using. And I'm very hesitant to actually go through and utilize some of their other modules within the program because the customer service is good, the product is not. So their product is very flaky. And so I would rather wait and rather than try and invest more into that and kind of wait it out until we're able to go in and actually implement a new ERP system. So I think there were 2 modules that they were still charging us for that we hadn't used in a really long time. So that's why you see that there's not, that the full 25,000 wasn't used there. But I do have a request. So on salaries and wages, 3 of our employees are hitting that 2% longevity increase. So that's changed slightly, and you'll see a savings because we've had some employees out, and so that's generated a savings in the normal salaries and wages. But I am requesting a part-time employee
for the front counter. And so the reason I'm requesting that is because right now we only have 2 people that can answer phones and take payments at once. And whenever someone is gone or whenever someone goes to lunch, it creates a problem with customers coming in, taking payments, et cetera, et cetera. And so I've brought someone in as a contract type person to see how it works during the year, and it's actually been a huge help. Not so many phone calls are going unanswered. It provides a lot better customer service to our customers. So the reason you don't see a huge impact in the part-time wages is because that position is split amongst general fund, water, and wastewater. So not just the general fund is taking the brunt of that part-time position. So I think there's a portion of it in parks. I think it's 2,000 in parks, and the remaining is in the other funds. So it wouldn't be a huge budgetary impact, and obviously because they are part-time, you don't have the other benefits that would go with it. So that is the big request for me right now. That and additional education and training and travel. I think it's very important that we provide our employees that incentive to attend those conferences that'll provide them insight and motivation to continue their education and actually bring back some of what we learn and apply it. I feel like that's been something that's actually helped me a lot. When I go to, for example, the GFOAZ, I meet other department heads, and I what is it called? Network. Thank you. I network. And so, for example, now that I'm looking to what other cities are doing with regards to their revenue.
I'm sorry. I'm just, network is better term for socializing, right? I'm just kidding.
Well, you get to meet people that are doing the same thing you're doing, and so they have the same challenges, and you feel more comfortable calling them, and maybe they have an easier, more efficient way to deal with those issues. And so I find that it's helped me quite a bit. So that's a good one. So I haven't.
I agree with you. I feel that, you know, we need to invest in professional growth for staff. I think that's paramount. You know, yeah. So.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Outside of that, there is another big one in my budget is the professional services. So I did budget for the financial advisor, for our legal, the bond counsel, thank you, the bond counsel, financial advisor, all that is budgeted under professional services. So that is, I think those are the bigger items, but overall I don't think that my budget is tremendously large. Outside of those, that additional services, it would have remained flat overall. So those are the bigger items. And I've also increased our advertising because if we do the truth in taxation, last year I didn't have a lot of expenditures because we weren't required to advertise as much. Whenever we do the truth in taxation hearings, we're required to advertise, and the advertisement is quite big and it's quite expensive. So.
Is that going to be this fiscal year?
It is going to be this fiscal year. This fiscal year, and then I'm budgeting for next year.
Okay.
Zarina, did we also budget for advertising for the other related elections under the clerk? Or, for example, for home rule and the general plan, all those are all within those departments?
within the clerk's office, but you know what, now that you mention it, I did think about it this afternoon and I didn't bring it to your attention. Usually when, in an election year, we have a significant expenditure that we have to pay the county recorder's office.
To conduct our election.
Exactly, and I don't believe that is in our budget. So that is, it is mandatory, we really have no control over that, and, I should have caught it,
It's
so.
about 25,000.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's about 25,000 and it goes under the clerk's bill.
That's the amount that, even with the general election, or whatever?
Yeah, so that's a good estimate. The last election that we had was the franchise election for APS. That was a special election with nothing else attached to it. I think they sent us a bill for about 25,000 that APS covered. So we're thinking that 25,000 is a good figure, and we already have the IGA in place that covers us for 5 or whatever years that was signed with the county and the county recorder. So yeah, we're ready to go. We just need the money for that.
Okay, so that's something that I have to adjust in the clerk's budget. That's all I have for you.
You know what I do? You just kind of briefly, but could you just elaborate on that professional services? I know went from 4,000 to 100,000, right?
Right, so, when we go to do the bond council, so, when was it that this came before council? When we contracted out Wetbush, those are financial advisors. And so that contract was 35,000. And so we're starting to use their services, but I'm not sure to what extent we're gonna utilize them in the next year for the bond election. And then we also contracted out a bond counsel for legal services on the bond.
But that does not get charged until actual passage of the bond, because that's part of the bond, or they're gonna, they could bill separately if it doesn't go through, they'll.
Right, and so, part of what they're gonna be helping me with is those continuing disclosures. I did mention that in 2004, so because we have general bonds, or I forgot the term for it, we have to upload certain reports into our federal database, and that hasn't been done since 2014. And so in order to update those and have the proper disclosures, we need their services. So I'll probably use them for that, but this was really essentially the encumbrance that we have out there with them, because we've already signed a contract, the engagement letter with them. So that's where I'm budgeting. Now, if we're not gonna go through with a general bond election, then I'm sure those services will come down.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Not on finance, I wanna propose something, but that's not until.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you so much. So I will stop the
Thank you
past.
for your hard work, the budget.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
How are you at lunch?
Haven't forgotten.
Okay, so, that's it. Are you gonna present?
Oh,
Mesa?
I think,
The other
covered it
person.
pretty nicely.
Learn a lot today too.
Yeah, I like it. That's a really nice PowerPoint, Serena. Very professional, and I really like all those numbers. Pretty confusing to me, but thumbs up.
Final thoughts?
I was just gonna say, this is just a proposal, it's something to think about, us as a council. I think that, those of you that have been here more than I have, and it's been a while, that, I know that the council has not received any, raise in the last 10, 12 years or so. And if we add $200 to each one of us, that's gonna be $16,100 a year. And I say, what about if we, right now we have $193,000 in the, council budget? Can we, is there a way we can cut some of the traveling money and just add it to the, raise it, pump it up a little bit?
Has to go to the voters, doesn't it?
No, I think council passes it,
Council passes,
but
it's not like.
I don't know, in this situation, but then again, if you want it as a agenda item, get another council member to support it, but at least I wouldn't want in this.
No, but because we're cutting out monies from the monies that we have for traveling, which is a lot more than we're gonna be spending on.
But as it is, people like to hate, elected officials, and if we do that in this climate, well, then again, it's not an agenda item, so if another council member wants to bring it up, let's do it.
Because we're talking about the budget right now, and that's why I brought it up, but again, I know it's kind of like our decision to make that, once we.
I think we make it, and then it doesn't go through until a new council comes in, so yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So Danny Paz and Daniel Ford.
But anyway.
But actually, timing wise, this would be the time because of the upcoming elections, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so if they wanna put it for item, okay. Final thoughts?
You know what, in a way, I can agree with, Councilman Gonzalez, I mean, not that I'm doing it for that, but, I mean, if I do the math, the time that I spend and everything, I think it's, but I don't know if I want to put it up, let me ponder on that.
Like,
Because but I see his point,
And I was here for the money.
One thing that we did, and years ago was the time to do it, was the elected official retirement. That was something that, would have been good. A lot of us that have been in council would have been able to, a lot of cities have it, that would have been. But I think they changed the formula now, so it's not as good, but that would have been something to look at, or maybe something that we can explore and see what the benefits are. I think that right there. But then again, yeah.
But I think it's a good thing. I mean, how do we compare with our neighboring cities?
The council members make more than Newman, less than San Luis. The mayor, I make less than both of the mayors. But I think council members in Newman make 300 or something like that. Yeah.
And San Luis, does they have insurance and does they have a retirement?
And Ian, I just, with my comments and Councilman Gonzalez's comments, let's look at the council members' priorities during the retreat and see if we can fit something small with big impact. I think that's something we can look at. Especially the 0.8 and whatever we can carry over. Show the public.
And this is $6,100 a year for all of us. It's not like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but and that's why we can kind of work it out to where the.
I'm talking about the CFP, the salaries, the salaries. Yeah, it's would be nice, but it's also hard to be self-serving and during this climate. But yeah, think about it. The ones that are here, yeah, the ones that don't come to the meetings, maybe we should look into penalizing the ones that don't come to the meetings.
We have a policy there.
Well, we should make it more like work sessions too. I think that's fair. Maybe we should look into it. If we can legally, let's look at that.
You know what I want to ideas.
No, but I think for the mayor, all of us are elected officials and things like this are very important because, we're, us, somos la voz del pueblo, if people talk to us about finance, we need to know and tell them what's going on with our city
service to the people of Somerton